Good evening. Welcome, everyone. It's that time of the week. It's a Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Mountain Time. Alongside me, my trusty companion, Chris Noble. I'm MacKenzie Wilson, coming to you live across Alberta for the only show dedicated to landlording Alberta, the Alberta Landlord Shoptalk show. Chris, what are we going to talk about tonight?
Well, we haven't have any guests scheduled yet. We're working on a bunch of stuff behind the scenes, but I think we're just is what I put a little video up this afternoon. I said, let's just have another open show. We learned lots asking questions. We'll follow the questions on the page, see what's out there, see what we can answer, and any new questions that come up. So I'm always excited for those open discussion scenarios we have. So
open mic night.
Yeah, we reached out to a couple of people that were regulars with us in the past, and they weren't available. So sometimes we fly by the seat of our pants. Sometimes we're organized. But at the end of the day, we got some good stuff. And sit down, hold on. I won't say the rest of that, but get a drink and or tea or a coffee or something and come back and join us. We're looking forward to seeing you guys. Well, there we go. Right back at it and ready to go. We got people already commenting. Looks exciting. Yeah. Got Marvin's joined us. Christine's joined us. Trish has joined us. It's awesome.
Yeah. I'm gonna allow you steer the ship here, Chris. So where are we gonna just give me the wins. Tell me where we're going, and I'll put the sail up for you.
You're gonna throw me to the wolves. Okay, well let's talk a little bit about the RTDRS. I'm just going to throw a little teaser out there while we're waiting for people to join us. I've had some good fortune of being able to reach out to somebody at the residential tenancy dispute resolution service, and we're kind of in talks with them. They want to know what we're about, and we're going to try to get someone to join us from the show. Ideally, I'd like to have one of the adjudicators come on, and one of the supervisors would be great. And we want to talk about best practices. So we're going to write them a nice letter. I got Mac doing his articulation for me because I'm a little too much of little too straightforward sometimes.
Yes, you're saucy. You're a saucy guy.
I'm saucy, but Mac's very smooth. So we're looking forward to hopefully having them on here. So, and anybody who's got some ideas for guests, we always got stuff in the works, but you know what? Just the two of us can't come up with anything. So drop us a personal note, put something up there so we can make a note as to what maybe you guys would like to hear about. So.
Yeah. Open mic tonight. I mean, on that note of being perhaps a little bit more organized, our guests for next week, Chris, because I haven't told you yet either, but I'm going to tell you live on the air. Corey and Tiffany Young from Fearless Investors are going to pop by for their inaugural appearance on our Shop Talk show. So they are more investment focused. They're based out of Edmonton, but they're across Canada with their Facebook group, and they're coming on 7,000 members now, and they're doing quite well. And we got connected and been chatting. So we're actually doing an appearance on each other's shows. They're coming over here first because they are actually booking out until April now because they're organized and we're a little bit more seat the pants kind of going, but that's fine. We'll have them on next week. So I think it'll be a really good conversation. They're very savvy in and around and very astute around investing, and it should be a fun conversation. So folks, if that is of area of interest, be sure to tune in next week. I've been planting seeds for future shows. I might as well kind of go down that road right now. I want to get on representatives from the different utilities companies across Alberta, at least the major players. So that would be EPCOR up in Edmonton, NMAX down here in Calgary, perhaps a few other. I'd love to get about 4 of them and bring them on the show and just have a conversation about, as us being landlords, what can we do to set up the paperwork properly with each of these businesses, what their expectations are, and just so we can avoid any pitfalls and, just anything we can do to run the business a little bit smoother and cover some liabilities around utilities, because it's always a sticky subject.
Cool. Speaking of utilities, has everybody else's bills gone through the roof?
I did have a really high one in January from one of my rental properties, but they have a base heater, which I should just. It sounds bad. I want to disconnect it, but they've got lots of heat, and I've asked them, "Hey, are you guys comfortable?" Like, "Oh yeah, we're very comfortable. In fact, we're too hot at times. We've closed some of the roof vents, yet my utility bill is like through the roof." So, and it was specifically the electricity. So, I'll have to figure that out.
$525 was last month's bill that I got on one of my rentals.
And what size of property is that?
It's a 3-bedroom townhouse.
That's
And
on the high side for a townhouse.
oh yeah, and I had a chat. Well, actually, this is what's really cool. The tenant came to me and said, "Hey, these people moved out," and she was my original tenant, and her parents moved in, and then they moved out, and because her lease renewed at the beginning of January, or sorry, the end of January. I said, well, if your parents are living with you, they've moved in temporarily, or whether it is or not, I said, they got to be on the lease. So I signed a 6-month lease with her. And really, having a couple of people move in shouldn't make any difference in the heat and electricity, because the house is just, Anyhow, the parents decide they're moving out now. So she asked if she could redo the lease. So I said, of course. But it was kind of good timing for me, because I reevaluated the whole, because I had upped the lease to have the extra people in there. And I showed her when she came to the house here. I sat down and I put the heat and electricity bill right in front of her. I put the water bill right in front of her. And I said, here's why your rent's going up. And she was just kind of dumbfounded, because these people don't see the bill. They just turn a light on. They have no accountability for what's going on. Their accountability comes when they're paying the bill. So that comes back to that dilemma we always have. Do you go and include your utilities, or don't you? And people, if they want the heat at 72, I just dated myself. What's that in Celsius, Mac? 23, 24?
Yeah, it's higher. I think 79, 60, 70 is like about 20 degrees, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, they want it up around 72, 73 degrees. Well, and walk around in shorts and a little tiny T-shirt at 40 below. It's going to cost money. Where the rest of us put on a sweater. So, it was a great opportunity. Here's a bill. This is why your rent went up, and it was very priceless to see the look on their face, and all of a sudden a little reality check as to, well, we're going to have to be more careful. Do you think our rent could come back down again? I said, could, but we'll see what the economy is going to be like.
Yeah. I was going to say, one thing I want to figure out, like what I've done, I know I've talked about this before on the show, is I've pulled out my utilities. So both my properties are single metered suite properties, and I have my utilities in my name, and then I bill then to the tenants. And I do a fixed monthly amount that I average out through the year based on usage, on previous history. And I manage that in a separate agreement or contract called a utility agreement. I don't actually have my utilities directly in my lease. That's governed through the RTA. So I'm wondering, and I'm wondering if I put myself at risk, Chris, by one, not having utilities on the lease with the RTA, because now if I have to go file for an RTDRS case or file for a claim, can I even have that conversation, because my utilities are in a different contract? That's not part of my lease. Like, I have them fully separated.
But it is part of your lease. It's part of the conditions of them living there. They've agreed to it.
Yeah.
So what you with in your lease, it says that your lease must reference that little contract you made up in some form, does it not?
Yeah, so I've crossed out the utility section with pen. Well, the
Yeah.
last time, let me think about this. No, I typed this up and up. So what I've done is I've striked it out, and I said see utility agreement
See,
on yeah, okay. So I've made a reference.
yeah, you've
Basically like
referenced it.
not as nice as an addendum. I just said see utility agreement, but
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Okay.
it's long, it's referenced, but you know what? Even if it wasn't, it's still part of what they're doing for you,
Right.
part of the
It's part
agreement.
of renting a property.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
see what Marvin's up to. There's Marvin Steer, one of my old counterparts back in the day, my policing days. He must have fell on his keyboard. He's got a bunch of pluses there, or that's a code for something. So.
He's having a fight with technology right now. But Sarah was just saying we've got some comments on utility bill. So Trish said my
Oh, you're up
worst
to
was $695 last month, and then she just checked another property and she's setting records. I don't think she wants to be setting right now. $789 a month. Ouch. And then Sarah says, "Whoa, ours was high in a single family home, but not that high. A little over 300. Sarah, that is extremely affordable at $300. That's like that is just the beginning of air conditioner season for me. Or no, no, that's like the shoulder season. That's like the spring and the falls where nothing's really running in the house other than hot water and whatnot. But something we're kind of talking when we're getting ready for the show was paper leases, and I had an interesting conversation. I was perusing Facebook on my lunch hour, and I started commenting on another Facebook group for landlords up in Edmonton, and it was a conversation with another landlord I know. I more of an acquaintance. I know she's very astute. Her name's Sherilyn Milsom. She's up out of Edmonton, and I've seen her present a few times and on different things. And she was commenting on a post and saying how she loves paper applications. And I was just like, really, this is interesting. And she said, you can really learn a lot from the handwriting on an application. So I kind of pressed her and I asked, like, are you judging someone's tenancy based on their penmanship or handwriting skills? And then I asked her further, how did I word this? I said, what things do you look at and what conclusions do you draw from the handwriting? And I had an interesting reply. But before I guess answer that part, Chris, like, how do you operate? Are you digital? Are you a little bit more old school and you throw a piece of paper down on the desk and get them to fill out the application at the viewing, or how do you handle that?
Well, I'll take anybody in, and then I tie a ball and chain to them so I can catch them if they try to run away. So.
Yeah. Mr. Police Officer here. Okay, continue on. Yes.
Yeah. So no, actually, what I do is, you know what, it's interesting you brought that up tonight because it was just something I do. Looking at how someone fills out an application, if they're just haphazard about how they're filling it out and they don't put a little effort into it and putting some detail, and you know what, the good old give a damn about what they're doing, and you're going to hand the keys over to your $400,000-$500,000 investment. Is that somebody you really want? Because they couldn't take the time to care enough to fill something out.
Mm.
And you give a nice application, there's lots of room, and they write all over the place. Having said that, take into account, is there a penmanship issue? If what you see before you, take it into account how they're speaking to you, how they're conducting themselves, how they're being interviewed by you. The whole big picture is what you want to look at. You're not going to turn somebody down because they can't fill an application out, probably. Maybe, I have a very, very good friend who to this day, cannot read and write properly. However, was the foreman for a community for years. And there was a way that he had to do it. But he still to this day can't read and write properly. And he's well into his 60s, so it's just something from his childhood. But he's the most wonderful person in the world. So you have to look at the bigger picture, not just focus on that little tiny thing.
Yeah, yeah. And Marv just coming back on a comment we said previous. His hearing aid fell on the keyboard, so that's why he had some
What?
pluses in. Yeah, right.
What?
That's interesting. Okay, so just so we're clear, you do use paper. You don't take a PDF. You don't have a digital application, right, Chris? You've got a 1 or 2 pager you kick out, and it's paper, right? That's how you take applications.
Yeah, and I give
Okay.
them a 10 colored box of Crayola and ask them to fill it out and see how it comes back.
Yeah, sure. I struggled with that. Like I did my first, not a lot. Maybe I filled three or four applicate or my 3 or 4 vacancies in my like the first couple years, and I hated it because I couldn't read the writing. I didn't even have it was so bad I couldn't even get the numbers right for the SIN to do the credit check. At this time, I was using this older service called tenant verification services at that time, and some folks in the audience may know what that is. But you go, it was through the RCMP. You'd go, you pay your amount, and then you'd put the information on behalf. I'd blow through because those are a little bit more expensive. I can't remember what I was paying for, 27 or maybe it was about $24, something like that. That $20 to $30 range too, I guess. And it was just for the police check and the credit check, and I wouldn't get a hit because I typed it in wrong, and I was like, I was not happy. Did not like the process at all. But I get. So then, yeah. So let me add on to that follow up. So I kind of pressed Cheryl, and here's what she wrote back to me. She goes, "MacKenzie, it's all part of the bigger picture. 2 examples. 1, prospective tenant on assistant saying she had FAS, which I'm assuming is fetal alcohol syndrome, but was employed full time. Her handwriting was a bit of a confirmation, not only of her condition, but also of her determination." So Chris, that kind of goes back to what you're saying, if they put effort or not put effort into filling out the application. And I also have chicken scratch, by the way. I've not grown out of that skill or improved that skill. So I destroy paper applications. It just does not change even today. So, and then number 2, she says, a prospective rent-to-own tenant claimed to be a regional manager of a national pet store chain. His handwriting, spelling, and grammar served as partial confirmation he was a complete fraud. And I actually know specifically what Cheryl M. Milson was talking about, because the first time you saw one of my videos on YouTube, Chris, was how to determine or detect fraud. And that was one of the examples I gave, how you can go and generate in seconds a pay stub online. Mm-hmm. So I get what you guys are doing. You're reading it between the lines. I just find the process so cumbersome. I want nothing to do with paper and people's writing. And I can't read. I can read like a good 1/3 to 2/3 of handwriting out there. So I can't even like read like it's bad. And I know this is bad, but like I even have to hack through that. So I'm much happier all digital online, and I'll just cross-reference as many data points as I can to get a really good picture.
Well, this is why when I come down to Calgary, I take my computer, I drop it on your desk, and I go down and have a drink at Blarney's, and you fix it, and I come back.
I fix your computer, you unplug my toilets. It's a great relationship. Marv said something here. Marv, bad handwriting, misspelled last name, etc. go hand in hand. Bad tenants give false information and or make their handwriting so bad that they can use it as an excuse for a 6 looking like a 0, etc. Okay. Yeah. So it's bad.
We talked behind the scenes here earlier. I said, if you received a handwritten resume for someone who wanted a job and it was a mess, and then you received a couple other ones that were nicely, like, would you even consider the handwritten one? Maybe that person's, it's all about presentation. And that presentation, I'm not saying you would turn them down. I'm not saying you'd even turn this tenant down, but it's about presentation, what you want. You're asking for a job, you're asking for a residence, you're wanting to buy a car, all those things. And it's about how you're going to present yourself to be the best person. And you want to build trust, you want to build credit, you want to build accountability, people to like you. And they say, you want this guy and you want this lady, you want this family. That's where we want to be in life. And if that isn't something that you're willing to do for yourself, then, it's what it is, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Chris, the show.
So what's Marv got saying here? He said, it is as bad as the ALC host misspelling. Oh, did you do that? Did you misspell that?
Yeah, no, I think that was you, but
yeah, I think yeah.
Chris the show. So yeah, anyways, it was interesting thought that it was actually like again, different perspective. It blew my mind that paper process was still preferred application method, and I get it. Like if you're looking at all paper applications, totally, I would absolutely take in consideration the effort put into writing the application. I would be at a disadvantage 'cause again, I have horrible printing. It's never blessed me that area, and so anything I can do online and digital is always the way to go for me. But anyways, so food for thought. I thought that was interesting.
Cool. Let's grab something off the page. I was just reading here. Kevin Chaput, Chaput, he spelled 3 hours ago, put up here. A tenant exits his is leaving his property after 3.5 years. And there's a red stain on the carpet that can't be removed. Do you charge for it? Reading some of the input from other people says, how old was the carpet? That absolutely, you want to know how old the carpet was. And do you charge? Do you change the carpet out? What do you do, Mac, when you ever have an issue like that?
Oh yeah. So you got take in consideration the age of the carpet. Do you have receipts proving that it was if it's nearly new, if it's been recently replaced? If you have those receipts, you've got a much bigger case to go and deal with that. If you got aged carpet, I don't even know what the average age of a carpet is, like 12 or 15 years, something like that, lifespan. So on this note, Chris, you bring up a good point. RTDRS, they actually have a cheat sheet based on what they will. So what I'm trying to say, they have the average life expectancy cheat sheet for different products in the house that commonly come up in claims for damages through RTDRS. And why is that important? Because it will be based on the price that you pay for it. If you don't have that, then they're going to go with a market rate, which is probably lower. But they'll take that. Let's say call it $1,000 over 10 years. So it's worth depreciates $100 a year. And they will subtract if you got 5-year-old carpet and you paid $1,000 and it's they'll take and you have to replace all of it. Worst case scenario, you actually have to replace all of it. You're only getting $500 from RTDRS because based on the depreciation of the asset. So
is it 10?
I just picked arbitrary numbers for an example.
Yeah.
So we should like this one. I would bring in perhaps a professional cleaner and charge it back to them off the damage deposit, especially if the carpet was generally still pretty new. So I mean, and Sarah's asking this right now, and I still do have carpet in the bedrooms of my one rental because I haven't had to need to replace them. I bought the property, it came with them. I wasn't going to spend more money at that time to replace. Though I did put new floors in my other rental, I pulled out carpet and. I'm probably going to pay this price. Hopefully I don't, but I put in laminate. I know I should have done vinyl planking. I was just tight for budget at that time. So I went with the cheaper product, but probably will pay for it in the long run because I've just seen that time and time again from conversations on our page. But are landlords moving away from carpet in general, or are they still considered a standard? Oh yeah, I don't like carpet at all because it just
a lot of people
and stained.
I think that's just sort of a decor thing now where more people are picking the laminates or what's the other one? Laminate or
luxury
vinyl
planking
or vinyl planking. They're picking that because it's in just general homes because it's easier to keep clean. You can let one of those little vacuums burn around, clean it up, or just sweep it up. Sometimes it's a lot easier, and it's sort of the look now. So.
Well, and on that note, I've got in my personal home here, I have engineered hardwood flooring upstairs, and my 2-year-old Jack, of course I love him to bits. We sometimes give him water to go to bed with because just to make him go to bed. And I came in just this week on Monday or Tuesday, and he had the bottle wedged between the wall, flipped upside down, and sure enough, there was a puddle. It sat overnight. I put my hand down and it lifted the wood. And I was like the floor is already getting destroyed. So I've passed that bridge. There's water underneath the bridge, but I'm just like, point in case. Just
water under the bed.
That's right. There you go. Actual pun. Love it. Okay. Chris is on point tonight, so I'll have to stay with him in stride. Yeah. Oh, so Kathy's right. She said, here's another opinion. And I like this. So Kathy says, I still love carpet, especially in apartments, as it helps with that. And it totally is soundproofing. So, I mean, pick your application, single family versus multifamily versus, again, I'm all suite properties. So I'll be dealing with more sound transfer. And that's 100% for sure. Especially if you drop like, well, not marbles, but you know what I'm saying, some hard object, it just ripples through the house.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to put this out there. I got asked today in our small community, picking up my vehicle at the service center, and I said, one of the servicemen that pulls me aside and he says, "Hey, I got to talk to you for a sec." And I said, "What's up?" He says, "My son has a rental property up in Fort McMurray." I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Oh," and he says, "They can't get the tenant out and they sold the house." I go, "Okay." I said, "What's the deal?" They said, "Well, they just are refusing to leave. They gave proper notice." I ran through all the hoops on that. They said when they sold the house, then the tenant's just refusing to leave. And now the dad thinks that Fort McMurray, and if anybody's listening to this, either answer this on the show here right away in the comments or PM me later. But they said Fort McMurray had some kind of bylaw where you couldn't kick people out of properties and stuff. I don't think that's the case. I think it just follows
A
provincial
bylaw,
legislation.
you can't kick people off a property for what reason?
Well, like because of the economy. Now, that was just the dad thinking he heard that, but I think it
Mm-hmm.
tied back to 2 years ago when we had all the problems with COVID, remember? And they
Yeah,
just said nobody could leave. I think that's just it's just
we
a
were.
carryover from that idea because they just have the one property. So, but anyway, if anybody knows any difference, let me know. But his son's going to get a hold of me and find out what he can do as a property owner slash landlord because he can't hand the property over to the new owners because the tenant's still in there and the closing date has passed. Interesting.
Beginning this month. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's well, we're governed by RTA, Residential Tenancy Act. It's provincial wide, provincial jurisdiction. So I am 99% sure um, that there's some misinformation there because I have not heard of a municipality overruling
Yeah.
the RTA. It just that would be a conflict.
Oh, I know it is, and I'm confident it is. But I just threw it out here for discussion, and somebody wants to throw it up here. That would be just as a point of
Sure.
discussion. But I can't see it being the issue. So, um, what's the next question?
Yeah. I mean, Chris. I want to pick your brain. Let's talk fraud. You're a retired law enforcement RCMP officer of many years, and we get fraud because it's, people want inside a house, and perhaps they know they don't qualify, and they try to get in. I mean, how did I meet you, Chris? I had a video on YouTube, threw it up on Facebook. Someone kicked me out of this nice Facebook called Alberta Landlords and Rental Property Owners. And I had made this YouTube video exactly on fraud. And this is why, okay, I'm digressing. I want to talk about fraud. Can you tell me?
Okay, we'll get Marvin in on this. Marvin, you still
Yeah.
there? Send us a wave. I think this is more down Marvin's alley. We should almost
If Marv
drag him
wants,
into the show
we'll
here.
throw him a link in the background and get him on the last half of the show if he wants to get into this because he worked in fraud investigation, didn't he? And corporate fraud, I'm pretty sure it was.
Something like that.
Oh
Well,
yeah, that'd be
send him a link, and Marvin, you can join
okay.
in. I think last time we had trouble with your speaker, so before we click you in, Marvin, just
We'll do a sound test
do sound
and
test or something.
we'll give him a chat. We'll give him a try here.
Anyway, check
Yeah,
your
okay.
messenger. We're sending you a link. But yeah, as for fraud, that's always another thing. That's why you want to do your background checks. And I'll slide back to Guidry. She posted up here, right here. She says 20% off of single key checks. Single key is a community, supports our community, and you using that system for a $20 check and have to deal with someone who squeaks in under your radar and ends up costing you $20,000 worth of stuff, but you were too cheap to spend $20 to check them out. It's a cost of doing business, guys. And you know what? You can charge
Yeah.
somebody an application fee for that matter.
Yeah.
We don't
Well,
spend money to look after ourselves. I find that interesting. We're,
the
we're,
psychology of a landlord. Break it
yeah,
down.
well, somebody should write a book on this. I don't want to spend that $20. Well, it cost me money. And then 6 months down the road, he goes, "Well, you know what that guy did? Now I'm up to $3,500 of unpaid rent. But if you'd
Mhm.
spent the $20, you found out they weren't a real person. But he's pretty smooth getting in."
Yeah. Yeah, like that was always my biggest fear. Like when I got into landlording, it was I can't pay a mortgage or my property gets trashed and I'm out thousands of dollars plus missing rent and the bills. Like that was just, and it still is in a sense, but now I'm just a lot more comfortable around it because putting systems in place to minimize that risk.
Yeah.
So all right. So I'll get into a little bit. I love talking about this stuff. I love systems. Systems make my world go round. But
Marvin's still
so
teasing me in the write-ups here. So did you send him a link so we can get him in
I
the
did.
show?
He's got a link. I know he's seen it because I've seen the little read icon there on
Okay.
Messenger, and so we might see Marv here soon.
Yeah.
So talking about fraud, and it is so easy to dock up credit scores. I have a YouTube video. It's actually my very first video I released on YouTube. If you go over to findgreattenants.com and look at the oldest content, I also think I have it pinned. Anyways, someone can do half decent job in less than 1 to 2 minutes. They can take a print screen of a credit score. It could be TransUnion, Equifax, well, everyone's doing them now, RBC, BMO, and they can take it. They can wipe out the numbers and drop in a 465 and bump it up to a 726 in no time at all. So how would you block this? How would you avoid this, Chris?
Avoid doing those frauds?
Right. So someone's giving you a print screen of a credit score. It looks
Yep.
spectacular. It's 800. It's 726. It's got their name on it. All looks good. How can you tell if it's real or fake? How do you tell if it's genuine? And I'm putting you on the spot here, and I'm happy to fill in.
Well,
I just want to give you a run at this.
you know what? It's how I do business. I wouldn't, if they handed me a credit score just because of what I used to do, instantly they say, well, here's my credit score. I go, first thing is, okay, why are you giving that to me? That's first thing. And okay, so that's a red flag to me. Like, who in all of my rentals in the last whatever years has ever handed me a credit score? So,
But they're proactive. They're on
good.
the ball, and they provide you above and beyond additional information to prove them.
Well, Marv, if you're ready to join in, just
Just
wave.
gonna pass the ball off to Marv. Marv's in the background.
No,
Just
I'm
wave
going to
ahead.
answer. Let's see if here he comes.
Okay, I am. So
Marv, you're here.
I'm getting a lot of feedback. How
Yeah,
about
you
you?
got our volume on somewhere else on your
Okay,
computer.
I
You gotta
am. So
close that link. I'm gonna mute you for now. And if you find that link, shutter down that tab open up on your computer, and we'll bring it back in. So
Yeah, we've got you
Uh,
muted, Marv.
yeah,
So as soon
we
as
need
that
you.
sound stops. So anyway, I'll go back to my little comment here. Was somebody handing me a credit check? No one has ever done that. So that's a flag for me, and that's just comes
Okay.
back to my 25 years of just doubt. Always investigated something as though it was the worst until I could prove it was the best. You just I try to disprove that something was not right. So this person giving me this credit check, I wouldn't. I'd accept it, great, but right away I'm going, why are you doing this? No one's ever done that before. The guy who says, yeah, I like to pay you. I like to pay you cash 6 months in advance. Well, some landlords go, oh, wow, 6 months cash. That's great. I go, my question is, why no one else does it?
Yeah.
So another flag, right?
Hey Marv, welcome to the show. Thanks for the impromptu
you.
invite.
Thank
We
you.
invited you half an hour late, and you still made it on time. So appreciate that.
well, and it takes old guys a little longer to figure things out. So I had
Totally.
two things
So-
open here. I had to shut one down.
Yeah, you know what, Marv? I know this subject is so up your alley. I know you are. You've been at this game for a long time. In fact, I think you were the person who started tenant verification services back in early 2000s. I want to say 2003, but I don't know if that's the right number.
About 02.
Oh, two. Oh, see, I wasn't
Yeah.
too far off.
Close.
And you have a fraud and investigation background, right?
I do. So I worked for the same company that Chris did for 20 years. 6 of those were in frauds. And I went to ICBC for 10 years in their special investigation unit doing frauds.
Okay.
And then I
See
worked
why I
for
wanted.
yeah.
See why I wanted to drag Marvin tonight. So I knew that. So he can answer this way better than I can.
And I was with the Royal Bank for a year and a half doing fraud investigations for their corporate security.
Okay, so many questions just spin in my head here. Do we start with what common things do you see, or like, because this led you to starting TVS, which is our ability to run credit checks as landlords, and then eventually came into the ability of doing rent reporting to Equifax, which is an amazingly powerful tool that really, relatively speaking, and we've never had that power before as landlords until just recently.
Yeah.
When you look at the big picture.
So everything landlords do with respect to their due diligence on a rent application is fraud prevention. You're minimizing your risk. So you're determining whether the information on the rent application is actually the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons why you order a consumer credit report, is that you should be comparing the information on the consumer report to the information on the rent application. Does it match? So, and I know from experience, and so do you guys, that the high-risk tenants will often misspell their last names, give you a wrong date of birth, all in an effort so you don't find a consumer credit report. And if you have an individual that's 24, 25 years old and he doesn't have a credit report, well, you better be asking yourself why. Chances are he's given you false information on the rent application. And we know that when people submit resumes, 60% of the information is exaggerated, and some of it is outright false. So applications for rent are no different. A lot of that information is highly suspect or not true, and are outright false, which is a fraud.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you answered my question, Marv. So I brought it to Chris. I said, well, how can you determine if you've got a screenshot of a credit score, whether it's false or true? And indirectly, you answered there by saying, well, you don't even look at that. You go to a credible, like a confirmed source, which you go directly to the source. So that's Equifax or Front Lobby now, or Neighborly or Single Key, whoever, get that credit report, and then you verify that information that, like you said, matches the application in hand. I don't take things at face value from tenants. I have to make sure I find as many connections as possible. The more connections I find on the different parts that make that information true, the more confidence I have in making a verified or a proper assessment of that tenant's potential.
Yeah. And I just want to make a point. And there's a lot of landlords, and I don't want to offend anybody, but there's a lot of landlords who take a lot of shortcuts because they're going to save 50 cents. We had an incident the other day where a landlord took the consumer report from the applicant. Turned out not to be his, or was false.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, so.
So the applicant provided the consumer report?
Yeah, and the landlord accepted it.
And, you know, this goes right back to a little bit of what I just said a minute ago. Why are you providing this to me? Why do you have it in hand? So my flags start going up and going, nobody does that, you see.
So we hear both sides of the stories because we provide a service or a benefit to tenants and a benefit to landlords. So we hear about the other side of the coin as well: bad landlords, cheap landlords, won't do things on the up and up, all kinds of scenarios.
Yeah.
But in most instances, landlords are unwilling to spend $10 for a consumer credit report.
Yep.
To save, potentially $10,000 or $12,000 worth of damage, or as in the case in Fort McMurray, the guy won't move out. So you're stuck with a tenant for 6 or 8 months.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because you didn't spend $10 to get a consumer credit report.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
You know, and I just dealt with an eviction here in Ponoka where the person wouldn't leave. So the lady said, well, I'll just go to court and I'll just tell the judge and go there. So she went to the court, and Of course, the tenant didn't show up, and she had what she thought she needed for paperwork, and the judge looks at her and says, I can't deal with this. And she says, why? He says, this isn't an order. There's nothing I can do here. This case is dismissed that fast.
Wow.
She comes back out. She doesn't know what to do. She talks to her realtor. Realtor says, well, give Chris a call. And the funny thing is, the realtor told her before she even went that day, she said, told her 2 weeks earlier, get a hold of Chris to have a look at it. No, I've got this. So you know what? This person wanted to save themselves, $700 not having an eviction expert or somebody do it like Rob or Don.
Right.
I just help out locally. I don't do like Rob and Don do. But you know what? You spend $700 to save yourself another month's rent of $1,500 going out the door. Like, do the math. You don't want to spend $20 on a background check?
Right.
Yeah.
So what I've advocated in the past at seminars, and a lot of other like individuals have as well, some of the real estate investors who put on these seminars advocate cash for keys. Have you guys done that?
I don't like
Cash
that.
for keys?
Yeah, paying a tenant $500 to leave, get the keys.
Oh, I thought we were talking on the application side. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a numbers game, right? So if you're gonna spend that $700-800 starting point for an eviction, plus you're still missing rent, plus utilities, plus your ongoing bills, and you can get them out at $500, and they're gonna walk away all day long.
Right. So there's a lot of landlords that don't think of that, and there's a lot of landlords who won't do it because it goes against everything that they think is detrimental to their bottom line.
I haven't
I
had to
don't
do
know.
it yet, but I mean, if I had a tenant that rubbed me really the wrong way, I would have a hard time throwing $500 their way to get my keys back. But completely depend the scenario. If I knew I was going to eat another $1,000, okay, I take that back. If I knew I was going to eat more money, I'd be writing that check and I'd own it. But if I was in the position with my documentation and evidence, I might just go to Mr. Don or Rob there and grind them through the hearing and perhaps put karma back their way.
Yeah, and the easier way, and so we have a fellow out here, Jim, who does the same thing as Don and Rob, does it in BC and in Ontario, and he'll ask the landlord, do you want to do cash for keys? Let's offer the guy $500 or $1,000 just to get out. In the end, that's what makes business sense.
Yeah.
So I have one fella contacting me, Mac. We talked about him earlier this week. I tried to mediate with him and the tenant. Actually had them both on the phone, and that was a shit show. Anyway, but the tenant finally just talked to me afterwards, and he says, I'm not leaving. I said, if he wants to give me the month of February for free, and which is $2,000, he says, I'll leave at the end of March. Otherwise, I'm not leaving. You can take me to court. Wow.
So what do Don and Rob, I maybe shouldn't even ask, but I know that the individual out here tells the tenant of the consequences for not leaving, and that in the end it's going to cost him a whole lot more. Plus, they get reported to Equifax, and they have a bad tenant history. So you may not get credit in the future, and you likely won't get tenancy in the future. Plus, you're going to be on the hook for another $2,000 or $3,000. So your choice.
And your records.
Yeah.
Tick on it now. Yeah.
So I don't know what it's like out there, Chris, in Edmonton, but what I'm telling them to do in Ontario and in BC, and I've been out so long, I don't know, but do the police still take reports for records and information?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So what I've been urging landlords to do is to report the tenant for mischief or willful damage or fraud for records and information purposes. And you can use that to tell the tenant, this is what I'm going to do if you don't get out. You're defrauding me. I'm going to report that to the police. They may not investigate, but there will be a report on file of you having defrauded me.
Interesting.
Just makes more of an impact statement, along with everything else.
I like
Yeah.
that. That's a new chip in a new bargaining tool I never thought of before.
Yeah.
Yeah. The key in what Marvin just said, for those of you who are listening, just to repeat it, is that the police may not do anything. And I will tell you, 99% of the chance they go, yeah, that's a civil. That's the answer you'll get.
Right.
And
Right.
but at the end of the day, you have just told them, said, look, this guy's basically defrauding me for this amount of money. Well, they may write it up as a fraud complaint, founded, unfounded. I don't know. There's another alternative, another remedy to it, civil. But the point is, there was a police file made on it, is what Marvin's getting at.
Yes, and it can be used as similar fact evidence if this individual's either done it in the past or if he's going to do it in the future. It can be used as similar fact evidence. And if there are 5 or 6 instances of this, maybe the police will do something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the nice thing too is there's an onus as the person reporting the trouble. I'm going to tell the truth to the police. Like, I'm not going to lie to you guys. So if I've gone to the police and I'm willing to report the case, and then I have this case number as evidence when I go to the RTDRS or our human, I think it has a little bit more weight. Like, it's not to say people don't do it, but it'd be pretty ballsy for someone who's running a business to go and lie to the police to falsify what do we call them? A police case, if you will, for tenant fraud. Like, I mean, someone could do that, but that would seem unlikely, and that would look good part of your evidence pool if you have to go to eviction.
And the landlord could go a step further. So whenever we investigate a dispute here, we ask for the records, the Excel that the landlord has for the monthly rent payments, and we get that. So I don't see why the landlord couldn't supply the police with that, so they have it on file as a record of missed payments or damaged rental property, photos of damaged rental property. And then in a dispute where I handle the disputes for the Landlord Credit Bureau, the tenant has to prove that he's made the payments. They can almost never do it. Of all the disputes I've investigated, the tenant has never been right.
Interesting.
Don here said you can't get that information from the police. Don, yes, that's correct. However, what we're saying is that if enough people report it to the police over time with similar fact evidence, is that Chris has reported it, Marvin's reported it, MacKenzie's reported it, and now Don's reported it. So 4 people are reporting the same thing over the last 3 years. That's called similar fact evidence. And say, some police officer somewhere will say, maybe we need to revisit this guy. And
that should be, so when they input the name, it should pop up. It should be referenced to the other files that have been reported previously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See a track record on the name of the individual. Yeah.
Yep.
And then it may get assigned to an investigator. But even though, I mean, that's just a tactic. Don, if you're listening, that's a tactic that can be used as not a threat, making an impact statement,
yep,
which gets the guy to thinking, oh, geez, maybe I don't want that.
So is that the official name for the documentation that we're filing with the police for fraud? It's an impact statement?
No. You're reporting it for records and information purposes.
Records and information purposes. Okay.
I want to report this for records and information purposes.
Okay.
Yep.
And back in my day, they had to take that report. And if you get a complaint taker who says, sorry, we can't take that, I'd like to speak to your supervisor, please.
Mm-hmm.
Get it from the horse's mouth. I've had, I don't know how many complaints from individuals where false information was given to the complainant by a non-police person, a complaint taker.
This is Chris's soapbox. Chris, how many times have you dealt with misinformation from law enforcement?
Sorry, say that again. How many?
So this is your soapbox. I said you want to do a course on this. How many times have you dealt with misinformation from a police officer that may be ill-informed or sloughs off perhaps a landlord issue that is enforceable with their jurisdiction, but they don't do anything about it?
Yeah, you know what? It's just education.
Yeah.
The fastest way out of doing an investigation, and it comes down to just lack of knowledge. Saying, "Oh, that's civil. You have to assume." Well, like when I've helped people on the page, and I've said, well, it comes down. Let's do the simple thing of a key. When someone landlord changes key or the tenant changes key and they won't give it to each other. Well, you know what? It's such an easy fix for the policeman in Alberta. It's a ticket. Just write out the ticket. It's $460 and it's a ticket. And you still have to give the key.
So I want to tell you a little story. So Don, if you're still listening, Jim Garnett from CTI Services out here got into a, can I say a pissing contest on this show?
You just did.
We're already 14A with Chris's language. You get right in. So.
With the OIC, the officer in charge of a fairly large detachment, because his members attended and wouldn't do something when Jim had an order to enter. And Jim went to the lawyer for the RCMP in the Lower Mainland here. And he sent out a directive to the officer in charge of the detachment. The officer in charge had to come back and apologize to Jim for not knowing what he was talking about. So Jim now has something from the RCMP lawyer stating that with this order you can enter, and the police have to attend to keep the peace, or whatever the case may be. But to your point, Chris, the police didn't know, a lack of education.
Yeah. Marvin, that's probably something you and I can talk about down the road, and I'll get your input, is just having I'd love to be able to go around and have an hour chat with, and my whole pitch to them is saying, here's how you're going to get educated and you're going to understand this so you can get this done faster and it doesn't drag out. And if you can show them how to conclude a file quicker and effectively and properly, they're happy, because they're stuck not knowing what the right way is to deal with it. Happened just south of Red Deer here about 2 months ago. The bailiff goes into effect an order for someone to leave. They call the police for assistance because the person won't leave, help to enforce, to keep the peace. And the sergeant showed up and said, it's nothing you can do here. If you don't leave, we'll arrest you for trespassing. And the guy phoned me, because I'm friends, when he says, Chris, this just happened. I go, he says, what do I do? I said,
This is the bailiff?
The bailiff called me, and the sergeant told him you had to leave or you'll get arrested. And you had no authority to be there, yet he has the order that says, and that's just lack of education, and it's frustrating.
So the bailiffs or Don have to go to the legal department for K Division and get it in writing. So the next time that happens, they can say, here, read this.
Wild. But yeah, this would be a good passion project, Chris, about putting together an info session to help out with law enforcement. I know we've been talking about it a long time, so.
Yep.
I've got tons of stories for you when we talk, Chris, with respect to members not knowing what they're doing.
Well, I'll have to come over and we'll get on that beer tap of yours and see if we can have a chat. I want to grab a question off the page because it's in relation to what we're talking about. It's Sierra Racine. She says, what are the chances of getting the money? And Marv's going to put some great input into this because I'm pretty sure I know where this answer is going to go. It says, what are the chances of getting the money from my tenant owes me after the eviction is completed? I filed with the RTDRS, but the tenants have always paid and had the notice. Oh, I see. She filed the RTDRS, but then they pay. Oh, you're bringing it up?
Yeah. So what are the chances of getting the monies my tenant owes me after the eviction is completed? I filed with RTDRS, but the tenant has always paid and had the notice go void. I never actually got to go to court before. Can someone let me know what the chances are and how the court gets the money to me?
So let me answer the first part, Chris. I'll let you answer the second part.
Okay.
And it's, Christine?
The person who wrote this post is
Sierra.
So you can report the rent payments to the Landlord Credit Bureau or Front Lobby. If you go to frontlobby.com, you can report rent payments. You can report late rent payments. You can report on-time rent payments, and you can report the amount that they owe. So That gets reported to Equifax in the middle of each month. When they're late or they don't pay, they receive an email stating your rent has not been paid, you're late, whatever the case may be, and it's being reported to Equifax. And you should do that before they evict, so they know what the consequences are for leaving you stuck with unpaid rental fees.
I like it.
So Chris, I'll let you answer the second part about getting money from the courts.
Well, the courts will send you money once you've effected a garnishee of wages or bank accounts. So to get money, if that's what they're asking, are they talking? Are you reading that as post judgment?
Well, let's assume that for this case.
Okay, so post judgment means you have a judgment in hand. Now you have to go to a collection process. You should be reading up on how to garnishee a bank account. You should be reading up on how to garnishee a wage. It's not that hard, actually. It's just big words that scare people, and the word court that scares people. It's just another process, and once you've done it once or twice, unfortunately, it's actually not a difficult process to do. Knowing where people's banks are is important. You need to take this information up front, knowing where they bank, what's the address of the bank. If you serve the Royal Bank in Lethbridge because you're living there, and their Royal Bank is from 10 years ago up in Westlock, that doesn't work. It should work, in my view, because a Royal Bank's a Royal Bank, because you can
Do
branch bank.
Yeah.
You can go and walk into any Royal Bank and do your banking now, but unfortunately, some of these places still have this idea that they won't accept it unless you actually serve it on the branch, which is
Of the actual account location, yeah.
it's a problem in itself sometimes. What's your thoughts on that part, Marvin? It's a very frustrating part for me because I know I've served. Short example is just north of me here in Musqueam, formerly Hobima. There's a Bank of Commerce, but they weren't open the day I went there, and they're a satellite branch to Wetaskiwin. I served Wetaskiwin, they accepted it, but then I get a call from Toronto that says, sorry, you didn't serve the right branch. And I had to get the Wetaskiwin branch manager involved to straighten it out, and then they finally would accept it. But
yeah, I don't have any experience in that, so I really don't know. But again, you're dealing with people, and as with the police officers being uneducated, you have uneducated people in the financial system as well. Mm-hmm. So it can be frustrating. So that's why I mentioned, it's all about prevention, right? So it goes way back to screening your tenants, knowing who you're dealing with and what their tenancy record is like, checking with the current and former landlords to see if their rent payments were made on time, and then reporting their rent payments every month to keep them on their toes. So that's what you have to do so you don't get to this point.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And it comes down, you pay a small fee. You run a business, you have expenses. It's not just limited to your insurance, your taxes, and your water bills. You're running a business, folks. And I know some of you are tight because some of you are landlords by accidental landlords, but
it's also tax write-off, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. What's Don got to say?
He was they will accept money from someone to pay a judgment and pass it to the right person. I think he's talking about the bank.
No, he's talking about the courts. He stated before that the courts don't accept money. Courts do not collect money. He's right.
Yeah. No, that's where I was saying you have to garnishee something. That money is paid into the courts, then they pay it out. So
yeah.
Just about out of time.
Yeah, well, this is a good opportunity. I kind of want to highlight this because Front Lobby has really given us teeth we've never had before as small mom and pop landlords. Because when you go and register that trade line, which is basically a tick on the tenant's credit score saying, hey, they owe X amount of dollars, they are instantly impacted the next time they try to use their credit for anything. Credit cards, car loan, maybe even a mortgage. And so much to the point, I know when we had Gord Heisler on the show, he's a multifamily investor out of central Alberta. He had a guy call him in 24 hours when he started using our service, and he heard about, at that time you guys were a landlord credit bureau, but we'll call it Front Lobby is what the name is now. he heard you guys were on the show. We had a conversation at that time with Zach, and he had someone call him within 24 hours. And what happened was, in that particular case, this gentleman had a professional association he had to re-register, like a geologist or petroleum engineer. I don't know what the association was. He couldn't renew his association dues because he had an outstanding
Debt.
things
It's a
on
debt.
his credit score. A debt, yeah. They wouldn't renew until that was clear. They want members in good standing. So extremely powerful tool, and it's something that we've never had before. And you can do this. It's so much more efficient than going down the collections route, because collections is one. It has to be a large sum of money for the collections to be worth their time to pursue. They're going to take 60% of that. You might get 40%, and it's a lot of overhead and manpower time to actually collect. Whereas it's just a much more efficient process, and it bites and it stings really well.
And there's very few collection agencies that will do rent collections anymore.
Yep.
It's true, actually. It's
Don-
true. There-
Don, thanks for this question. Here's bad tenants don't care about the credit. Okay,
Oh.
so you're right about that, but here's the thing, Don, is what we're trying to get through with this front lobby program is that if you're reporting your tenants' poor behaviors, they're also going to start to care about not having a place to live.
That's right.
Because
Land-
sorry.
Go ahead.
If we got everybody on the same program and everybody thinking, and this community is exactly that. We have 700 people now, Mac?
Yeah,
And
we're coming up to 3,800 soon.
yeah, so here we are as a community starting to think alike. And when we start to think alike, we do things the same all the time. And if you practice best practices, you do it the same every time, then you're never going to make a mistake, or you're limiting your opportunity to make a mistake because you're doing it and you're following the rules. You're following Residential Tenancy Act, you're filing with Front Lobby, you're reporting bad credit, or you're reporting good payments. Everything falls into place, and the bad people all of a sudden have nowhere to go anymore. And if we all could just jump on board, it would be a perfect world. But when go back to what Marv and I had said earlier, when you don't want to spend $20 or you don't want to spend $5, that will cost you $5,000 or $20,000 later, potentially.
So landlords and property managers networking to identify good tenants and bad tenants. So not only should you know about the bad tenants, you want to know about the good tenants as well. So you identify them in addition to the bad guys.
Yeah,
And that's what we do on our page.
System.
Yeah.
Let's do a little bit of overtime. We've got Marv rarely tuning in and live on the show. Marv, I know this is a passion project of yours. You're on a goal, and I've been one of the fortunate people looped in. What are you trying to do across Canada to really improve the picture for this industry?
I'm sorry, say that again.
So Marv, I know you're trying to bring together different players in the industry to really
Yes.
improve it for the better. So do you want to do a sneak peek on that, or is that under where are you at with this?
So I will, because Kayla's on here as well. Hi, Kayla.
She is, yeah.
So what I'm trying to do is get the influencers together to present the same message to all of their clients or members, right? So if all of us influencers in the industry are saying the same thing to all of our members, working together the way landlords and property managers should be working together, it's going to benefit the industry. It's going to benefit what we're doing. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, totally agree, and pretty thrilled to be a part of it. I know we're still in the early stages, but I'm sure if we beat the drum long enough and at the right pace, people will hear. And it's from a place that will make the industry better for everyone involved, including the tenants.
Mm-hmm.
It will go. It just takes time to get that message out.
So just a quick last thing. You guys talk to Kayla quite a bit, I take it?
Yeah, I can. Chris said I can send Kayla. I know it's 11 o'clock your time, but I'm gonna kick you a link here, see if she wants to join in. But yeah, I talk to Kayla quite regularly.
She's the Tasmanian devil of Ontario. meaning she's a whirlwind. She's got like a dozen Energizer batteries in her. She just go, go, go.
I love being on a show that she hosts. She's like so smooth. I learned so much listening to her.
Yeah,
Oh,
she
But
does
speaking
a
of
lot of good things in Ontario. A lot
I
of
bet
good things.
speaking of which, Chris, we're scheduling coming up here next week. I didn't tell you that, but you're on her show next week, so
I'll go get a tie.
FYI. One point I do want to tie in one thing here, completely separate, but so Don made this comment. He said the bad tenants don't care about their credit, and that is, at this point in time, I do believe that's 100% true. However, credit and that sticks around a long time with a person. I don't believe someone who's a deadbeat today will always be a deadbeat tomorrow. And by using the systems that we've talked about today, you might not get your money back today, tomorrow, next month, or perhaps next year. But 4 or 5 years from now, when they perhaps get their life together and they've come through some self-realization, you might be getting a check in the mail or a phone call or an e-transfer. So it can't be. You got to look at it from the lens of there's a long-term gain here. It's not just can I get my missed rent back from the last 3 months missed. But anyways, food for thought.
Yep.
Yeah. Kayla
Well-
says no.
Yeah. She hasn't got her makeup on, eh?
Fair enough. Well, then you can turn off the camera, Kayla. We'd love to hear your beautiful voice. But yeah. Anyways, super fun stuff. Lots of things at work here. Yeah, it's a good show. And I do want to highlight that again, Marv. That was a great tip about you want to supply, if I remember correctly, information and I want to say records.
Records and information purposes. I want to report this for records and information purposes.
You can file a complaint against your tenant, especially if there's damages or money owed. Get that with the police. Get the paper
Absolutely.
trail going, and that's something that you can use in the future as leverage in many different ways. It's just another card to have in the case, and I think that's just our tool in the toolbox, and that's phenomenal tip. So thanks
As soon
for that.
as soon as you call that complaint line, there's a file number generated. They don't decide whether they're going to take it or not. They have to take it, and then they just decide what they're going to do with it later. So,
Yeah, and that file number alone sounds pretty powerful, and it's an RCMP file number.
policing in general, yeah. Well, Mac, are we going to wind it up?
Yeah, we did good here. Absolutely.
So we're not going to get to see Kayla?
No, she's.
Come on, Kayla. Just log in. We'll turn off your camera. Just chat. Just chat. Just go find somewhere quiet. I imagine your kids are probably sleeping right now. My kids, my 2-year-old just got potty trained like 3 weekends ago now, and he uses the "I have to go pee" excuse all the time, and he just. It's bad. I mean, I'm gonna admit this. I don't know if it's good parenting or not, but we flipped the bathroom door lock off the bathroom. We put it on their kid's door to the bedroom, and we flipped it backwards so we can lock it from the outside. But now my oldest son, he's 5. He goes in, opens it, and then my 2-year-old keeps running out all the time to go pee. And he's like, "I have to go pee." He just learned it, so he's so proud of it. And then he's like, "Oh, I tried nothing." Then he goes back to bed, and it's just an aggravated bed process. Anyways, I digress. Kayla, I think we have you on the show.
What's up, guys?
I love it.
I'm in bed. I just got out of the shower and I'm listening. I'm like, yeah, you guys are talking, and I was trying to type, and then you guys are on to another topic. So I'm like, I gotta get in.
I know.
I gotta get on this chat.
I'm sure Don can relate. He's one of our sponsors and eviction experts on the page, and he's trying to rattle off text strings as fast as we talk, and it doesn't usually work that well.
No, it's good. It was a good comment because you know what? It's true. Like you do have so many tenants that, they have broken credit. It's already destroyed. But what's the lesson here? The lesson is that we have so many landlords that are not doing their credit checks. They're either not pulling their own credit check, or they are trusting that the credit check that is coming to them from tenants is legit. So this is something that all landlords need to know, that it's happening. And even to pay stubs are another situation that tenants are able to Photoshop to make them look legit. So as landlords, we're now, trying to do the best we can with our tenant screening tips, but we need to be our own private investigators to make sure that the information that we are receiving now is legit. and making sure that you can pinpoint out which ones are fraudulent.
So I'm going to do that example right in the fly because it is very, very easy to do. I'm going to Google fake pay stub. We'll say Canada, just to make the example relevant. The very first link, or second link here, Canada pay stubs. Click on here. You can create your own, and it has all of the correct deductions for CPP and, you know, EI, income tax. It's extremely easy to do. This will take someone 5 minutes, and yeah, like it's just throwing that just for your awareness. It's super easy to do.
Oh yeah,
So-
there's somewhere in the States that for fake credit checks, you can pay a small fee and they'll get you a fake credit check as well. So we have to, be a part of that norm. And sometimes it's not their fault. Sometimes they just don't know where they can get credit checks, and make sure that it's from a trusted source. And again, this is why we're all a part of the bringing awareness to Front Lobby, being able to show people that not only can you do rent reporting, but you're also able to get that long form detailed credit check that's going to be fast and easy to read. A lot of people are just looking at the score. And I think you should do another show later on to talk about the credit check, what we should be looking at besides just that score, and that's what a lot of our landlords are. I like to look at the entire debt that is available to that tenant, the credit, because they could go into debt very, very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just gonna say, so Samuel commented much earlier in the show here. I'm gonna grab that comment when I find it. But the credit score is not important. It's that history of the credit score and how they've actually handled the money that you're looking for. So you sent me this in the comments here, Marv. What are we looking at here? Oh, Marv's on mute. Let me unmute him. Oh, you gotta unmute yourself, Marv. I can't do it. It's down on the bottom there. On your little profile picture at the bottom. Yeah. But yeah, so when we correct check, it never about the score. It's what's shown on the report. Exactly.
Probably down on the bottom left, Marvin, there'd be a microphone that says mute.
Oh yeah, the big button's at the bottom. Yeah. Well,
anyway,
okay, there we go. So
he's back.
if you click on landlord fraud, there's some education there with respect to screening your tenants, how to do it, how to talk to a current landlord, all that sort of stuff.
I love it. I have a lot of information on how to do this stuff because it's fun. Like you said, it's a game of peering through the misinformation to find the truth.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Well,
so now you understand why you said earlier, Chris, when I said as soon as somebody's trying to be too helpful, to me it's a flag. And it just comes from doing what we've done in the years. Marvin, go, okay, that's not a normal behavior. Okay, why are you making this easier? Okay, so now I got to dig deeper. So
awesome. Well, unexpected show. We had two great guests come on.
Yep.
Yeah. What a treat it was tonight.
I had to text my husband. I'm like, if you come upstairs, you have to be quiet. I'm on a live show.
Well, you didn't tell me about this. Well, I just showed up randomly.
Now you guys are getting me pumped up before bed.
Yeah.
You know how I get about tenant screening.
Oh, Kayla, your camera just clicked on, Kayla.
Oh man, are you serious?
No, I'm just kidding.
Now we're gonna have a show. I did say I was ready for bed, didn't I?
Well, how about you two stick around? We'll end the show. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We did a bit of an overtime segment. Always fun, good conversation to be had. And I think Marv, again, that tip you shared about getting information followed with the police, phenomenal power tool that to have.
Yes.
I always learn something new every time I'm on the show with you guys. So appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody.
Loved it, guys.
Okay, take care. See you again soon.
Happy renting, everybody.